Okay, in this video, we will do an introduction to functions. And so we have x and we have y. So we have x is -1, 0, 2, 2, and our y is 2, 8, 5, 7. And this one we have x is -1, and our y would be -5, 0, -5, 2, 5, 3, 5. And we want to say, is this a function or not a function? And we know that this is not a function because we have x repeats. If x repeats and produces something new like 2, 5, 2, 7, it would not be a function. But if y repeats, like right here we have 5, 5, but x is all new, it is a function. So that's something important to actually memorize if you don't know this already. And so the next thing is we want to do fx is equal to 3x squared minus 2x plus 1. And we're going to say that x is 3. So we're saying f parentheses 3. This is essentially just meaning we're plugging in 3 for x. Because we have f parentheses x, and now we have f parentheses 3. So what's different is that x is 3. So we plug in 3 for x. So we have 3 times 3 squared minus 2 times 3 plus 1. So 3 squared is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. Minus 2 times 3 is -6 plus 1. So 27 minus 6 is 21. 21 plus 1 is 22. So the answer here is 22. Next, we have f parentheses 3t. So exact same thing that we did here for part A, but instead we plug in 3t for x. So 3 times parentheses 3t squared minus 2 times 3t plus 1. 3t squared is 9t squared. 9t squared times 3 is 27t squared. -2 times 3t is -6t plus 1. So this is the answer for part B. And in the next question, we want to find the domain and range of the function given by this. And so for the domain, we're looking at the x. So what values of x will this not be anything? Will this not be allowed? We know that we can't have a negative square root. That's a rule. If you go on your calculator, you write square root -5. It's going to say it does not exist or something like that. Because you can't have a negative square root. It would be an imaginary number. It won't be a real number. And so, but you can't have square root of 0. Square root of 0 is simply 0. And so the domain, we're only looking at x, would be including 5. So I'm using a square bracket because it means it includes 5. 5 is included. And you could go, if x is like infinity, you'd have the square root of like infinity. And so that's allowed. So the square root of 1,000, you can do that. So it would be a square bracket 5, comma, infinity. And for the range, what we do here is we plug in 5. Since we know it goes from 5 all the way into infinity, if we plug in 5, what do we get? Square root of 5 minus 5. So square root of 0. So 0 plus 2. And so our lowest value based off our domain would be 2. And it would include 2. So once again, square bracket. And next we plug in infinity. So the square root of infinity is infinity. So you could even have infinity. So infinity here. And we can never actually touch infinity, so we use a regular parentheses. This means it actually doesn't technically include infinity, but it's like a number slightly less than infinity. Okay, so that's this question. Next question is we want to find the domain for this. So we want to get the domain of it. And there's an additional step for this problem. We know that we can't have a negative. Actually, we can have a negative of a cubic function. For example, the cubic root of -1 would be -1, because if we said -1 times -1 times -1, we would get -1. So you can actually have a negative in here. But you can't divide by 0. So we have x squared minus 4. We can't divide by 0. And what we're going to have to do for this is factor it out. So we're going to say x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. We want to know what values of x would we get 0. If we factor this out, we can get x plus 2 times x minus 2. This works because x times x is x squared, right? 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. 2 times x is positive 2x, so you have 0x. And so we can say that x will not equal negative 2 and x will not equal 2. And so our domain will therefore be from negative infinity, because we can have negative infinity, we just can't have negative 2. So negative infinity to negative 2, and this is saying not negative 2. So we're using regular parentheses. We use regular parentheses if it's not going to include that number. Then we use u because we're continuing, and it's going to go from negative 2 to 2, but not including those two numbers. And then we do u again because you can have a number greater than 2, so 2 to infinity. And so our final domain will be this. And that's all we need to do.